Hi, this is Anita from Real Estate Crunch. This is kind of an interesting question, and one if any of you travel like I travel. The question is are all U.S. airports federal property? The truth is that U.S. airports are usually run by a state or the local government. Running an airport is quite a complex matter. The responsibility for aviation operations is usually shared between different parties, including all air services, federal government agencies, airlines, operators, pilots, airports, and state and local governments. Some airports may join federal government agencies in running operations of the airport. It depends upon the airport, and it depends on the agreement between the state and the local authorities. In short, the federal government is involved in all U.S. airports, but the airports are not U.S. federal property. Most U.S. commercial airports are owned and operated by the public entities, including local, regional, or state authorities. This is also a reason why, many times the airports, some cities may try to get certain airlines to come there because they want to be able to get the revenue from those airlines for their airports to make their airports more efficient. The U.S. airports are considered to be powerful economic engines. They, can generate billions of dollars in annual economic activity. They also can support millions of workers with good paying jobs. So, a city may really want to have an airport. I'm thinking now about, I fly in quite a bit in Chicago. Chicago O'Hare, of course, is a huge airport. But then at the same time, you go to another, city which isn't quite as big, Denver. And I've recently been flying out of Denver a lot to Narita or to Japan. And then you think about it, another airport that I know, which is not in such a big city either, is Salt Lake City, where Salt Lake City has recently invested to really expand their airport. And one of the reasons is that Delta has become a hub there. That's because an airport is considered to be an economic engine for the area. It also be able to help people to be able to get in and out. It can help to drive economic growth in many different ways. So U.S. airports are really to be self-sustaining. So the next time you go into an airport and pay an exorbitant price for like a bottle of water, remember that your airport is supposed to be self-sustaining. In other words, they depend upon the rent and other services within the airport itself to become self-sufficient and not rely on federal or additional dollars. So you can imagine how much many of these airports hurt during the time of COVID when people were not traveling. And that's also why maybe you haven't seen like airline tickets go down so much after COVID, or you haven't seen the airlines reduce the tickets that much because again, many people, including the airports themselves, are trying to make up dollars they lost during the time when nobody was actually traveling, because the airports need to be self-sustaining. That is why, too, when you purchase a ticket, you will see that there will be something added for an airport charge. So no matter where I fly in the world, there's usually some type of, like even in Japan, there's a passenger service charge there when I go through there. There can be a September 11th security charge. There can be a U.S. passenger facility charge. There can be all these different charges that sort of add up to the cost of your ticket because the airports, even for things for the customs and other things that you might need. So each time you fly in and out of an airport, it's important to remember that these airports need to be self-sustaining. They're usually owned by state or local government. There are a few of them which might be individually owned, but most of them are owned by the state or local government, but they are very much tied in to the federal government. So it's kind of, in a way, sort of this joint ownership between both of them. And that will be why some cities might opt and say, look, we want to expand the airport, and others may say, we don't want to expand this airport because it may cost us too much in tax-paying dollars. The U.S. military, which is part of the federal government, will own the military airports. And some small airports, that might be considered private airports, can be owned by a single owner or an association. But at least, 7% of the United States GDP and workforce is accounted by the airports. So the airports is a huge employer throughout the United States. This is Anita from Real Estate Crunch. Thank you so much for listening. We hope that you've enjoyed this podcast where we talk about all things to do with real estate, even something as interesting as who owns our airports. It's good to understand some of these things about property and real estate ownership throughout the world, and in particularly around the United States. Hope you've enjoyed this. That you'll subscribe to our podcast, become a member. We'd love to have you join part of our community. Thank you.